Hello. We are actually going to be talking about our leading text set for this text set 6. And the leading book would be a novel, which is known as Amal Unbound by Yesha Seed. And I really wanted to talk about her website just a little bit. I thought it was well done, excellent, loved it. I love the colors and stuff that she brings into it and just how she has it set up. I just thought she has done a totally amazing job here. So I'm going to walk you through it just a little bit. And of course, down below you can see the reviews and stuff that she has there. And her 2 books that she actually has published are written in the stars, and of course, Amal Unbound. And if you go up to About, her bio's there, tells you a little bit of information about her, and a few other things. I mean, and she's just an awesome author. She lives in Atlanta, Georgia with her 2 kids and her husband. And of course, if you go under books and you go to Amal Unbound, you can go and it actually tells you a little bit what the book is about. And we'll just go ahead and take a look at that really quick. Because this is life is a quiet and ordinary in Amal's Pakistani village, but she has no complaints, and besides, she's busy pursuing her dream of becoming a teacher one day. Her dreams are temporarily dashed when, as the eldest daughter, she must stay home from school to take care of her siblings. Amal is upset, but she doesn't lose hope and finds ways to continue learning. Then the unimaginable happens. After an accidental run-in with the son of her village's corrupt landlord, Amal must work as his family servant to pay off her own family's debt. So I thought this was just an awesome story because it tells about, actually it has many themes and topics, I felt. And I thought one of those being money and power and the people who are less fortunate who always fall under someone who's in power, or even those sometimes that we work for. I remember when I was working at one of the jobs that I had been there for quite some time, and the not necessarily my boss, but the person who was in charge underneath of my boss would always come in, and at one point he had actually come up to me and told me that I had worked for them as long, I had been with them so long that he could talk to me however he wanted. And that made me feel like my viewpoint wasn't important, like what I could bring wasn't important. And I'm just like, I'm not going to stand by and do nothing or say nothing about this. And I finally looked at him and had the courage myself to say, that day is never going to be. That day is never going to happen. So I did take it to the person above him. But this is, to me, that same type of situation where there are times that we have to learn to speak out and be brave, no matter what the consequences are that we face. And in this particular thing, when your family is owing money and they're trying to raise you doing the best they can, but they fall on hard times. But the thing here I had a really hard time in this book was remembering the time period, that this is recent. Because oftentimes this particular book, I was thinking back like in 1947 because of a previous book that we had read in one of my other classes called The Night Diary, which is very similar to this. It takes place in Pakistan, India. And that story and this one, I think, would be an awesome text set to use together. But I had a really hard time remembering, because of the things that were happening in here, that it wasn't back in 1947, which I was reading in the Night Diary, but this was actually happening like in 2012. And this was based off of Malala's story and the girl who wanted to be the teacher. And Aisha has taken that story and has expounded on it and set a scene for, an area in Pakistan where this girl might have lived. So it's a very compelling and powerful book. It's definitely worth a read. And it's very good. But the other thing that I wanted to talk to you here about on her site that I really liked was under the news and the global read aloud information that she has. She has different things that's going on and stuff. And she mentions that in this, in her page here. But also when we go on down here, she gives us some great information under the global read aloud information and different things that she does. And like if you really wanted to have an author talk to your class, she's got the student Q&A video blog, Skype drawings where she'll meet with your class. I'm thinking these are just some awesome opportunities for a teacher where you can actually have an author talk to your class. And for students, I couldn't imagine anything more exciting than to meet someone, that they would think of as famous and to actually get to talk to them in person, or via, web, which is very close and very exciting. So anyways, there's some great information there, so definitely go check that out. And she also has a contact page here where you can contact her personally if there's something you want to ask, if you want to maybe see if she'll even come to your school or something. So, I just thought this was great. She's really opened up about it. She's even got school visits. This is amazing. And here, she has teaching resources. Check it out. It's awesome. Global Read Aloud, and of course, we've already talked about that. And then, of course, if you wanted to check out her other book, and she actually goes in and has events, and she mentions those events and like certain things going on that she's going to be doing. So I think this is just a wonderful resource that she's given us. So definitely check that out. And going off of that for this particular book, Amal Unbound, I can't think of anything greater than for a person to read this book and really understand that this is actually set in today's society and time. And it's just a book that we can think about within our, that children are actually living in these circumstances. And that it's happening today. Because I think sometimes if we live here in the United States, we tend to forget kind of the time period and think that this isn't going on today around the world. But I think that Aisha Seed has actually done a wonderful job in showing that it does and how that it happens. And I just think that this is just a wonderful story. It also talks about different kinds of food and stuff that they would have had there. So if you wanted to relate this to a cultural aspect, you can go in and you can actually look and see how authentic the recipes are and see if those are actually true to the time period if you were doing a study on this, and to kind of give the students more of a cultural perspective. And then that way you could actually let them maybe try some of the same foods that Amal would have tried. But Amal was a very brave girl, and she had high dreams, and she had dreamed of going to college and stuff. But when she ends up meeting the landlord, pretty much the whole town and the whole area, the whole village, that she didn't realize who he was. And he actually, this is going to be a spoiler, so don't listen if you're going to read the story. But he hit her with his car, and instead of, he did ask if she was okay, but not really asking if she was okay. And she picked up her food that she had purchased at the market, and he was actually going to take her one pomegranate that she had, which is the reason for the whole issue. And she decided she wasn't going to let him just have this, but over something so simple that your whole life could change, that you could become a servant to someone else over such a simple measure. But that she learned to speak up. And then, like, in the end, when she comes and she has to make a really tough decision, especially about this person that she's so fearful of, and speaking up. And I related to that through where I had mentioned the job that I had had, because I was able to really kind of put myself in her position and think that would have been terrifying. But then when you know that it's not okay, that you know that it's not right, whether it's good or whether it's bad, we got to choose if we take the risk or not. And she was thinking that this one decision of making this one would make everything better. But then you have the servants asking if, the person gets taken away, what's going to be their source of income, knowing that they live in an area where it struggles. So you can take it out and do a particular study on where, what are the circumstances, the economies in other countries. How is that affecting, people who the people who live there? Is that why they're making their decisions? I mean, what do they do for a living? How do they survive? So, these are all good questions and cultural connections for any class that you could take and do from this book. And I just think that the lesson in the back, that no matter what choice that we make in the end, whether it's good or bad, and whether we're hoping for good outcomes or bad outcomes, we got to weigh the choices of the good versus evil in those choices, I think, and decide, which is a better factor. And even though we might risk losing something, hope for something better, and always have a measure of hope that we hang on to, for justice, and to have the courage to go up and see that justice done and formed, even when you know that it could cost you your life or you could be tortured for it. Because in the end, it is going to be better for people in the end, in a really tough situation. So it's just a really important thing to think about in this book. It covers a lot of those issues, and she began to think in the end, because of the decision. I'm not going to ruin that spoiler for you, but if she comes and she's thinking about it, is there ever any really good choice, one over the other? Because even when you're doing the right thing, sometimes people are going to get hurt too. But when you're thinking of the overall justice, and you're thinking about humanity, you know, um, she knows the decision she made was right, but that doesn't mean it was easy. And I really like the thing that it said, or what I got from page 210 was, when she is talking and she's having a conversation with a Sif, and she's telling him that she's forever indebted to you, which is the teacher at the school. And he says, "There's no debt, Amal." He studied me for a moment. "I'm not sure I've ever met anyone as brave as you," he finally said. She replies, "I'm not brave. I'm terrified. I just don't have a choice." But the main message of this whole thing is, you always have a choice, and making choices even when they scare you, because you know it's the right thing to do. That's bravery. And I thought that's a wonderful lesson to take into a classroom when we face so many things and so many adversities out there, and even in our world today. And we're oftentimes afraid, even as adults, to stand up and to take part in social justice issues. But the importance of doing that, and I just thought that this book overall sums that up very well. So I really suggest reading it because it's very powerful. Thank you.